Grand Rising, everybody. Today I'm going to be bringing you a little bit of a special kind of video. I'm going to be giving you a look into the work that I'm doing here on Buena Fruta Farm in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico. And hold on a second, look at that. It's just before 6 a.m. Everyone's just still sleeping, but I'm gonna get started a little bit early today, just so I can beat the heat and the possible rain. So I thought I would take advantage and use this opportunity to get a little footage before I get started and show you around a little bit in the process. Here we've got obviously some banana, and then here we have starfruit trees, two varieties. Those are the longer, skinnier orange, dark orange variety, and this is the lighter yellow. It's like a pale yellow. Really, really good. I've been eating so many starfruits. It's unbelievable. And then we've got some different varieties of mango. We got Keat, Springfield, and something else that starts with a P. I'm blanking on that right now, but we had some pretty heavy rains the last few days, so the paths are a bit weird and slippery. This is hard Tosca, which is like, Tosca can be either like a soft sandy clay or a really hard rock type, and he had some hard Tosca brought in to cover the soft Tosca to help with erosion. But when you get hurricanes and stuff, only so much can be done, right? So Buena Fruta Farm is basically a regenerative organic farm. He doesn't follow all of the permaculture principles in terms of growing and zoning and things of that nature. Here are some nice cacao trees, but he still does a really good job at keeping things in their natural order. But it is mostly a cacao and coffee farm, and where I'm working right now is set up essentially like a cacao orchard, but he will be interplanting with coffee so that the coffee can use the shade of the cacao once they get to a certain size. But nonetheless, still doing great work and using regenerative agriculture practices is all I really want to see here. So whether you want to farm with a more traditional style, a newer modern approach, or just using permaculture principles sparingly or to the T, whatever floats your boat, do that as long as you're doing right by the planet. So earlier last week we had all these vetiver grasses. They were soaking in the water over there, and we had to dissect them essentially so we could propagate along the second layer here, all the way around, an upper and lower layer there, and then a bit through behind where those palms are. And then I built a dam with some cuttings way in the back to help with sediment in the pond. There are tilapia growing in this pond, so they do a great job with bugs and keeping that low, because I really haven't had an issue with any bugs while I've been here. It's been super nice. They're already starting to grow in the second layer. It's been less than a week and they're growing really well, so they're gonna come up nicely, just like these big ones here. It will be like that all around. The vetiver grass, their roots can go up to like 10, 12 feet deep, and they grow straight down. So that's gonna help with erosion, filtering the pond water, and keeping this pond clean, strong. So they're gonna do a really good job, and they are also non-invasive because they can't reproduce from seed or just from propagation. So no need to worry about a wide spread of vetiver grass, but they're pretty awesome. And then right here is the little nursery area for all the cacao and coffee. And the area I'm working in, we've got 650 cacao and 450 coffee, and we've been pocketing all of those trees in one of the sections there, terracing the entire hillside. And me personally, once I was finished helping with that, I've been building staircase right through. Well, they're not totally lined up at the bottom due to the contour of the hill, but I've been building a staircase through that ridge to get to each terrace, make getting up the hill a lot easier when it comes time to harvest and maintain that area. So that's what I've been working on, but I'll show you guys more in detail what I'm talking about in a few moments here. So the total property of the farm is 14 acres, and just about all of that is usable, but this is a very, very hilly property and can make growing and working tricky. So that's why when you're growing on a hillside with a slope like of at least, this is probably at least 30 to 40 degrees, you're gonna need to do some terracing. There's a lot of labor that goes into terracing and pocketing trees and just general earthworks. Look at these babies. I'm not familiar with any fungi, Caribbean fungi. Something's been eating it, so it must be good. But if someone can ID that for me, that would be super cool. It's completely flat on the bottom. It's like a little umbrella. Yeah, here's some coffee. They're not ripe yet. There's probably a few around that are starting to turn red, but they're not all quite there. And Jeff was mentioning to me that he had a lot of fallen trees during Hurricane Maria, and then recovering from that in this area was a bit tricky for him. And then last September, Hurricane Irma came to Mayahuez, and it was only supposed to be a tropical storm, and it ended up being, in this area, he says, just as bad as Maria, at least for him. So he's just working on creating some hurricane prevention, finding some hurricane prevention techniques, keeping his trees shorter, thus putting more energy into fruiting rather than growing tall. He just did a bunch of clippings of these trees the past few days But here is some of the cacao, and I'm working up on the other ridge there, so more coffee. There's coffee all along the entire pathway here that I've been walking thus far just to get here. And so all of this was completely like that prior to me coming in to get working here, but no one was able to get up the hill when it was raining until I put these stairs in, so they've been working pretty well. So they're still super wet, so I know that they're working, because not only are they just for climbing, but they're angled in at a certain way where they're leaning back like that to act as mini terraces, hold water, build up the water table, keep moisture in this area for the trees longer, so to fight drought resistance, and hold organic matter to build up the increase microorganisms. The IMO in this area will increase, indigenous microorganisms, which is what you need rather than supplementing something like a spray or whatever of microorganisms, or buying something, an amendment of that sort. You want to reproduce as many indigenous microorganisms as possible, because that's what's going to survive here in your area. So we're building these terraces to not only stop erosion on the hillside and make it easier for harvesting, but slowing the water so it's not all rushing right off the face of the slope, so it's soaking into the ground, thus increasing fertility and building up the soil, building up the bacterias, giving a good place for amoebas, protozoas, fungi, and bacteria to thrive and grow here in this area. So here's an example of some pocketing of the trees and a bit of terracing. There's a nice good deep pocket. The pocket has about a 6-inch wide deeper ridge, so when the water comes off, it settles in this area and seeps back into the hill, and then if it floods over, it will come more towards the tree. And then there's a lip on the pocket to act as kind of a, well, just exactly that, a lip, like as if it were a pail or something to hold that water and keep it from washing anything away. So that's a good example of a pocket there. Sometimes they have to be changed up a little bit, but these trees were planted very randomly. If it were up to me, I would have done my earthworks first and then planted in accordingly, because you want your terracing to be done on contour with the hill. And this lower part of the hill especially has a changing slope and contour, so they're not all going to be perfectly in line. And there's the A-frame. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how this works, but I'll show you real quick. And this is essentially for checking if your terracing is level. You hold it so right there. When the string settles, if it's on that line or just about, then it's level. It's just got a little weight, fishing weight there. And then you can take it, swivel it like that, and you just keep going like that, and that's how you check to make sure that your terracing, terraces or swales or whatever you're working on in terms of earthworks is level or not level if you're going for something more of a grade towards a certain area, if you want water to get to a certain part or destination. So those are the stairs at the bottom. Here's the middle, more pocketing. This terracing is a little wider than lower because the slope is different here, so it calls for a little bit of a wider terrace. But these trees, the initial trees, I think he said they were 5 years old. This area gets a lot of shade, so they're a bit smaller than you'd expect, but he had them all cut completely after the hurricane. He just cut them all because there was a lot of damage and they're forming new shoots. And I was told that there's really no pods right now on these trees because of the high winds and heavy rains from Irma. And apparently everyone in this area that grows cacao has been having the same problems. So hopefully they return to their abundant nature soon, especially with all this terracing and pocketing and everything that we've been doing for them. So I have good faith that they'll bounce back nicely. But he's got about 75 different species of fruit trees on this farm. Not for commercial production like the cacao and coffee, but just subsistence. And for example, on my way here, grabbed a few lemon drops. I don't know the official name, but the genus is Garcinia, I believe, and they're in the mangosteen family, so they're a little different though. It's just the big seed inside and it has the fruit pulp around it rather than the little pods like a typical mangosteen. But they are similar and they're really good. They're like a little bit of a citrusy, kind of like a Sour Patch Kid. And I love sour stuff, so we're also underneath an insane canopy of native mango trees. These are called Maguez mangoes, and they're everywhere here. They're these little yellow mangoes. They're really good. They're really sweet, but insanely fibrous. So eating them is a bit of a pain. It's a pretty nice one there, because they get all stuck in your teeth and whatever, but there are so many of them, so it's like a closed loop system. They just act as a fertilizer of sorts when they decompose back into the soil, because they fall every 30 seconds from the tree, and no one is eating that many wild mangoes. They're not worth the hassle. So that's pretty cool. Gotta watch out though, cause I've almost been taken out by mangoes here a few times. They fall pretty violently and from quite a ways up, so gotta stay vigilant. If you're a little rustling, gotta protect your head. Just like one fell over there. Such a beautiful view. Great working environment. I have a really nice office. So the sun is just now basically fully up, so I'm gonna be able to get to work. And I'm probably going to do a full 6-hour shift instead of breaking it up into threes, because normally you do 7 to 10 and then 3 to 6. But that's a bit tough for me to break up my work like that, because once I stop and I get all, sedentary because I'm tired and I've eaten and all this stuff and I've been relaxing, and then I'm like, I have to go bust my ass again. So I'd rather just do it all, get an early start, work till midday. It'll be a little bit hot, but as long as I can avoid anything past that noon hour, I should be fine. But this is where I am now. Finished off here yesterday. Some of these big mango roots. Like, look at that absolute behemoth. They have a nice integrated mycelium network. I can guarantee that. Like, that's just a little root. That's funny. Root sticking out of the ground from this tree. It's absolutely insane. So I just incorporated those into my stairs. But there's probably been like 100 stairs made so far. I probably have like 50 more to go. So this requires moving an insane amount of dirt. Like the terracing, you just pull it back and create a lip, but I gotta transport all the soil out of the way completely. So I've got these buckets and I just lug them off to the side or wherever we need it. And I just use the pickaxe. And then there's this other little straight blade thing that I use to clean up my edges. But already here, you can see right on the top lip, someone stood on it while it was wet, and there's a bit of erosion, so the stairs will catch any of that, and they'll kind of build themselves up naturally with organic matter over time, and more roots will grow through it, and they'll become stronger that way. But in certain areas they can be a bit fragile.